Welcome to another episode of Deep True Crime. Today we investigate and we dive deep into the Becky Watts murder. It's another tragic story. And the purpose of this channel is to keep you aware of what could possibly go wrong out there to hopefully help us stay educated and know what do we need to be careful for. And it doesn't matter how careful you try to be. There's just some heinous people out there. And that's what leads us to today's video. It's a tough one, I will share. It is one of those heinous crimes that you just think to yourself, why would this ever happen? This should not ever happen. And this is the case of the Becky Watts murder. Becky Watts, she was only 16 years old when she was murdered. 16, had so much life to live and give. Since then, her family has struggled to cope with her violent death at the hands of a loved one. You heard that right. The hands of a loved one, another family member. And that's what makes this another tragic story. You see, Becky Watts, she was a student living in Bristol, England with her dad, Darren Galsworthy, and his wife, Angie, back in 2015. She was living with them. And on February 20th of 2015, she was reported missing right around 4 p.m. by her family, who said her disappearance was out of character. This was not normal. This is not something that Becky would do. And so they found it very strange that she would just go missing. No one had answers. And they started a social media campaign. And this social media campaign, it was called #FindBecky. And, they launched this social media campaign, but little did they know it was already too late. Though at this moment they're thinking she's missing, little do they know she was already dead. It was already too late. Because they would later find out that that the tragic teen had been murdered the day before she was reported missing. So, the next day at 4 p.m. when they reported her missing, she wasn't missing. She was already dead. And that's what makes it so sad. And to add to the sadness, she was killed on her brother Dan's birthday of February 19th, 2015. I mean, that even adds more to this tragic case. I mean, think about it. Dan, he will never enjoy a birthday again, ever. Because that's the day his sister, not half-sister, not stepsister, his sister was killed. And later, her body was discovered, chopped up, and hidden as a part of a sick kidnapping plot. By who? Her stepbrother. And that's what also makes this such a tragic case. Because she was found in pieces. Rest in peace, Becky Watts. Rest in peace. I know there will never be any justice for any of this. And, so they're searching different places. It literally was about 2 weeks before they would discover her missing body. 2 weeks. And so it was discovered, and, they find that she had suffered more than 40 injuries because she desperately fought for her life against the evil people that did this. And, before all of this, while she was fighting, eventually she would be suffocated and her corpse was sawn up in a bathtub. In a bathtub. That's another terrible, terrible thing about this whole thing. And so, they're trying to find answers, right? They're trying to find answers. Come to find out that there were little parts found in different body parts that were found while they were searching for Becky Watts. And this is where it's such a tragic thing. Come to find out, her stepbrother, Nathan Matthews, and his girlfriend did this, Shauna Hoare. They both did this heinous crime. Like, who does that? And during the trial, jurors that were in this trial, they went to Becky's home where she was found. This is an actual picture of her bedroom. Crazy, I know. This was an actual picture of her bedroom. And so, the jurors are there now that the couple have been brought to trial. There were actually multiple people that were charged, but only 2 were convicted. The others, they had no clue they were transporting a body, pieces of a body. And so that's where more would begin to come out about this whole thing. So let's talk about the timeline of this heinous crime. And so on February 20th, right around 12:20, Matthews, the male, he buys 2 bottles of drain cleaner from this Rajani superstore in Bristol, England. And so about 30 minutes later, he purchases a McAllister circular power saw. He purchases face mask. He purchases gloves, goggles from this local place there in Horfield, Bristol called B&Q. And so about less than 3 hours later, the girlfriend texts Matthews. And in the text, she says, "What time do you finish work? LOL, hugs and kisses." And so around 4 p.m. that day, Becky's father reports the teenager missing. And he goes to the police and he reports her missing. So about 2.5 hours later, police arrive at Becky's home and they speak to Darren and wife Angie, right? And so in that house is also Matthews and Hoare. And they're in the house, and the couple, they claim they heard Becky leave the previous morning. They said they heard the door shut, she was gone. And so, a little later that night, they order Chinese takeout food, and they order it to Cotton Mill Lane, which is where they lived. And so about 9 p.m., a phone of Matthews and Hoare, they search for this search term on YouTube: "Do you want to hide a body?" So they do the search for this, which is also a little of And so on February 21st, the couple, they go to ASDA in Bedminster and they buy black bags, they buy rubber sacks, they buy rubber gloves, bleach, and 3 rolls of cling film. And they purchase about $20 worth of $20 of the euro dollars of electricity from a local shop. And so February 22nd, a couple days later, they buy black rubber sacks, they buy tape and a sponge from a 99-cent store, and a Wilco at the Broadmead Shopping Center in Bristol City Center. And then they buy some tape and cling film at Sainsbury's in Brislington. It's hard to pronounce some of these words, so forgive me. And so On February 23rd, police attempt to enter Cotton Mill Lane, but no one answers the door. And so right around 4:38 p.m. February 23rd, they notice they come to find out a mobile phone belonging to Hoare and Matthews search for "Find Becky Watts" on Google. You know, again, she's missing and they have this incriminating evidence, right? So right around 4:40 p.m., Hoare rings her estranged mother. She doesn't have a good relationship with Lisa Donovan, who is her mother, and stepfather Kevin Stone. And they arrange to visit their home in Wilton Close, Southmead that evening. So come around 6 p.m., detectives return to Cotton Mill Lane, but Matthews and Hoare are not at home. And so they speak to the pair at Wilton Close. So they find them there at the parents. And Hoare agrees police can search their home at 10 a.m. the following day. And so around February 24th in the early hours, Carl Demetrius and Jamie Ireland borrow a van from their work in Filton. Now, Carl and Jamie do play a role, but unsuspecting to them, they're agreeing to move a body. They have no clue, right? And so about 2:19 a.m., closed caption TV shows a van moving between Cotton Mill Lane and Barton Court with light coming on by the garden shed. So of course this is a little suspicious, right? And so around 2:31, the white van is seen heading back towards Ireland and Demetrius's work in Filton. And so February 28th, there was blood that was found on door frames outside of Becky's bedroom and is DNA matched to her. So now they know she most likely is not alive. And fingerprints in the spots match Matthews, which also ties him to the crime. And so both Matthews and Hoare, they're arrested on suspicion of kidnapping. March 2nd, Matthews makes a disclosure to police about Becky's disappearance. And now Matthews and Hoare are arrested on suspicion of murder. Now, March 3rd, in the early hours, police discover Becky's remains in the shed at 9 Barton Court. And that's where Demetrius, his brother Donovan Demetrius, girlfriend Jaden Parsons in Ireland are arrested. Now, they're arrested, but they don't really know that they're arrested for transporting a body. And so you can see here when they're first interrogated, look, it's like it's nothing. This was after they already killed them. Now, they're not arrested at this moment, but you can see they're having fun lying to the police. They're literally having fun lying to the police. And so, because here's the thing, after they killed her, they stayed at the home that they killed her, which was her bedroom. They put her in the back of their vehicle, and they stay in that home for like 6 hours. Then later on, back at their own home 2 miles away, that's where Becky was chopped into 8 pieces with a circular saw that was bought from B&Q. I mean, this is a heinous crime by all stretches of the imagination. And this is part of that CCTV where they were seen going into the store where they would make some of these purchases. And so this is a little art that was taken in memory of being Bristol's angel. And we'll talk about a little of where that comes from. But who is this Nathan Matthews? And Nathan, he is a stepbrother of her. He's the stepbrother, and he was a takeaway delivery driver, and he was the son of Angie Galsworthy. And he, growing up, he was brought up by his grandmother, Margaret May, and her husband, Christopher. And as a teenager, he spent hours alone in his bedroom, even taking his meals there. And he was, by all accounts, he was kind of a loner. And in his bedroom, it's where he first became fascinated with pornography. And by the time of Becky's death, he was viewing, sexual images almost every day. It's hard to know what I'm able to say on these videos without YouTube getting upset. And so after Matthews graduated school, he studied to be an electrician. But he failed the course and became a delivery driver for Domino's and for Sainsbury and a Chinese takeaway place. And so, he suffered pain, he suffered depression, anxiety from an early age after being diagnosed with a rheumatic condition called fibromyalgia. You've probably heard of that. And so his medical condition and fragile mental health did not stop him from joining the Territorial Army. So he wanted to get into the service. While a part-time soldier, he learned survival and organizational skills that would become useful when he disposed of Becky's body. And so, Matthew, he did get along with Darren, Becky's father, and at first he did get along with Becky herself. And when Darren and Angie married, Matthews was the best man in their wedding. Is that not crazy? And, he was in a relationship with Becky, not Becky. He was in a relationship with Shauna Hoare. And that's who we just talked about through there, right? And so it was obvious that this guy was not a good guy for a long time. And it finally crept up to him where he would do bad things. And so his relationship, according to people around Shauna, she was a hard-working person. And she even cared for Matthew's disabled mom, Angie. She had multiple sclerosis. And, so her upbringing, she grew up in care of, not her mom. Her mom, she was not necessarily a great mom. And so she grew up in care as a child, but not with her mom, but later did move back with her mom, Lisa Donovan, who had 7 other children. But here's the thing. The two of them, they were hiding dark secrets behind their seemingly normal couple lives. They shared a warped sexual obsession with petite teenagers, which is what Becky was. She was a petite teenager. And, they had fantasies about threesome sex sessions, and, they were both kind of ate up in this way, as I would say. And so in the weeks before Becky's death, Matthews and his girlfriend, who lived together in a housing association, terraced house in Bristol, which was one of the reasons why the cops couldn't search right away, is because they lived in a friggin' mess. They were like hoarders. According to Matthew, he would pick up anything along the side of the roads, believing he can fix it. So in the home, it was complete mess all over with all of that stuff. It literally was a mess. And so, the couple Matthew and Hoare, they exchanged intimate messages about kidnapping girls. I know. Isn't that a riot right there? And so, but, I mean, they didn't act on it until this Becky Watts. Like, why do it to why do it at all, but let alone your sister? Your stepsister? I mean, that's just terrible, right? I mean, that should not ever happen. Let's be real, right? That should never ever happen. So on February 19th of 2015, they went to Becky's home armed with a kidnap kit, which included handcuffs and 2 stun guns. And there, we would find out during the 5-week trial at Bristol Crown Court, Nathan told the jury how he closed his eyes as he dismembered his stepsister's body with a circular saw, which is heinous on its own. I'm sure everyone would agree with me on that. And, so it's like, how could you do that? Because afterwards, he then put 9-stone Becky, meaning she weighed about 125 pounds. That's what 9 stone is there. And they put it in a suitcase to take back to his home. And there they offered a friend $10,000, their Euro money, I believe it's called, which is more like $12,000, $13,000 here in the States. And he offered that to store items, and that's where those friends came in, that they had no clue what they were storing. They kind of thought maybe it was drugs because they saw a package, but that's where that filming comes in that they wrapped her body in. And so that's where it's like, wow. And so despite all of this, after what they've done, they ordered takeout food like nothing happened. They played a game of Monopoly like nothing happened. And they laughed over a parody song from Frozen called "Do You Want to Hide a Body?" And they just made it into a parody. I'm sure you know what that means. And so this is where it gets kind of, creepy, because they would see footage that showed Shauna Hoare smiling as she gets a thrill out of lying to cops after butchering her killer boyfriend's stepsister, Becky Watts. Like it was no big deal. Literally, like it was no big deal. I mean, that's cold on its own, right? And so, this footage shows her getting a thrill as she tries duping cops, as she and Matthew spin a web of lies. And both of their stories matched so much. The way they said it word for word. And that's also where it was like, this doesn't look right. And so there was this investigation discovery ID channel called Faking It, Tears of a Crime. And one of the investigators revealed how Hoare gave away telltale signs while being grilled by cops. And so Cliff Landsey, he points out how she smiles as she's asked about Becky's disappearance. He would say, this is what we call duping delight. It's the thrill you get from getting away with a lie. At least they thought they were getting away with it, right? And you can see in this picture right now on the screen, this is when they were first interviewed. Look at these smiles like it's no big deal. And according to Cliff Lansley, those little smiles, she can't control them. She thinks she's winning here. That's what he would say. And so over time, of course, the evil stepbrother of Becky Watts was found guilty of her murder. And this twisted killer who was obsessed with petite teenage girls, he denied murder, claiming that he killed her by accident in a prank gone wrong. But obviously enough evidence proved that wasn't true. And, Hoare, she was found guilty of Becky's manslaughter, and she was sentenced to 17 years in prison. And Matthews, he was found guilty by a jury at Bristol County Court after 3 hours of deliberation. 3 hours it took. 3 hours. So they knew, there was no question, these people were guilty and he committed the murder. And even though she was, she was cleared of murder, but she was convicted of manslaughter. But they were both found guilty of conspiracy to kidnap. And he and Hoare, they were both seen on CCTV, which is what I showed you guys earlier, and it'll pop up here again, buying bin bags, rubber gloves, and this was days after Becky's disappearance. But she said she had no idea the corpse was dismembered in her bathroom. Now, here's the thing about this bathroom. I meant to put it up here as well so you guys can see it. The whole house was messy as can possibly be, but this bathtub was spit shine. You could eat off that thing. It was so clean because that's where it all was done. And so 8 body parts wrapped in cling film. That's where it's like people use that to wrap food, to wrap other things, packages to stay together so things doesn't spread out. And they were found in a neighbor's shed 80 yards away from the couple's home. You see, the people who did that part, they thought Matthews was kicked out and they were helping him move some stuff. And he gave them like a bunch of money for it. And, it was the Christmas holiday, so that they were happy to receive money. But they didn't know they were kind of part of helping get rid of a body, which is freaking terrible. And so, Matthews and Hoare, they planned to kidnap this 5-foot, 1-inch Becky in a plot fueled by a shared sexual interest in petite teenagers. That is despicable on its own. Terrible. They took a stun gun, handcuffs, tape, and a large bag to her home on the day she died. And so after, in post-mortem examination, after the body was, to find out what happened, they found that she was suffocated during a violent struggle and that she suffered 15 stab wounds and a slash across her stomach after death. Heinous as can possibly be. And so now Shauna, she was found guilty of perverting justice, meaning trying to get justice, to try to hinder them from getting justice. And she was also charged with having this stun gun, which was prohibited. And Matthews admitted, we had a stun gun. And when they were found guilty, you can hear people, the family across the courtroom, cheers rang out. Literally, as the verdicts were returned on these 2 heinous criminals. And even the brother to this day said, the person that I was, you don't want to let him out of prison. He does not belong out of prison. I'm summing it up. And so, think about it. He throttled her neck. He throttled her in her bedroom, then bundled her in the back of his vehicle, and he later sliced up the body in the bath with a power saw. This guy should never, ever be released. But he will see he will see freedom again. And that's what is terrible if you ask me about this whole thing. And so in November 2015, he was convicted of her murder and sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 33 years. Minimum. So he will serve at least 33 years. And what is that? 2048, he'll get to see the light of day. So who's to say what will happen there? But her dad, in his victim statement, the victim's impact statement was read to the Crown Court as Nathan Matthews was jailed for life, right? Was jailed for life with a minimum of 33 years. So hopefully he spends the rest of his life. But here is what Darren had to say. I'm sorry, Darren, that you went through this. I'm sorry. Darren, he's married to Matthew's mom, Angie. He's still married. Some people wonder how he could still be married to her. She didn't do this crime. He loves her. He stands by her. She did not commit this crime. Why wouldn't he? That's my thought process. And so he said, I'm the father of Becky Watts, now known as Bristol's Angel, which you saw here on the screen as well. And he said, we will never understand why this has happened, but we now believe we are victims in a plot of hatred and greed. I have to agree. Because this is terrible. And he said, this despicable act of evil can never be forgiven or forgotten. When the news came out, our entire world collapsed. I'm sorry, Darren. He said, I can't describe the searing pain and anguish Angie and I felt when Becky was found. The only way I can describe it is like being cast off a cliff into despair. That's how much pain he went through when they found Becky. And he said Matthews and Hoare callously watched him descend into madness through worrying about his missing daughter. Because it'd be like 2 weeks before they would even find the missing daughter, right? And they would find her not alive. And so here, Matthews and Shauna, they're both watching him go through this. And like, heartbreaking, just truly heartbreaking. And Darren said, it truly would have been much easier to have taken us all than have to cope with the aftermath of this crime. Everything beautiful in our lives has been ripped apart with one act of violence. When I close my eyes to sleep, I see Becky's death over and over again. I hear her cry and see her terror. And then her realization they're not going to stop. I feel her heart racing and I am all too powerless to help her. Becky was so small and fragile, she never stood a chance. Now, Becky's mother, Tanya Watts, she also read a victim statement as well. And she described the moment she gave birth on June 3rd, 1998, saying, Becky didn't want to come out. She was happy where she was. When they finally brought her out, she was screaming the place down. She continues to say, I always said they knew about it when Becky was born. They will know about it when she is a teenager. I never thought it would be like this. She says, my beautiful, kind, funny, loving, loyal, feisty, creative daughter has been murdered. Every day has been a living nightmare. And if that wasn't bad enough, for some reason that I will never be able to understand, after my daughter was murdered, she was mutilated, cut into pieces. It is like the worst of all horror movies, but this is real. Rest in peace, Becky Watts. Rest in peace. This is a savage thing that has occurred to this family. This is a savage thing that occurred to Becky Watts. And worst of all, it happened from someone that was supposed to be family. By marriage, they are family. And his appetite for some despicable act, for some despicable way, and to find a girlfriend that can go along with this even adds to the horrible thing. And this lady, this girlfriend, used to take care of his mother. Wow. I mean, there are some things I'll never understand. I don't know if there were red flags. And if there's red flags and it's your child, it's hard to really, it's hard to really dig deep into that without blowing it off like, hopefully it will be done. They will get through that. They will not always be this way. But truth be told, that is a rough thing to say, right? I mean, that is hard on its own. It's so hard in so many ways. And you just wish this did not happen. But the truth is, it did happen. And that's what you wish never happened. A picture of, let's see, and this is the bathtub. Let's see if I can remove that. Let's see. Look how clean this bathtub is. And so every place else in the house was not clean. It was not clean. But this part, look how spick and shiny that thing is. The whole house is tragedy everywhere. This is Becky Watts' bedroom. This is her bedroom. This is also part of her bedroom. And this is what I mean. When they searched Matthews' home, they found the house was dirty, but the bath was completely clean, which also adds a little weirdness to it. And, this is a picture of Becky Watts. And this is Matthew saying he did not intend to kill Becky. Not true. And there goes Shauna. She denies any knowledge. This was obviously way earlier. And this is a little map of the area that they were doing. You can see the B&Q store. Let's see if I can make this bigger. Let's keep that there. Okay. You can see the, let's see if I can make this, let's see if this will work. Okay, maybe that's a little bigger there. And you can see a map of how this went. Okay, the B&Q store in Hoarfield, where Matthews bought drain cleaner, a circular power saw, face mask, and goggles the day after Becky died. You can see Becky Watts was killed in her bedroom at her home in Crown Hill. And you can see the ASDA in Bedminster area where Matthews and Hoare bought rubble sacks and 3 rolls. You can see I'm not too sure what the bottom is. And this is the home down here of Nathan Matthews and Shauna. And here is the home of Carl Demetrius and Jadine Parsons, which is a short walk from Matthews' home. And let's see right there. There we go. Here goes the bathroom. Becky's room still contains a shoe rack filled with the 16-year-old boots and trainers from the day she died. And this is where, like, Matthews and Hoare stayed in this house. They stayed in Becky's house. This is the front room. They stayed there for the afternoon after they are said to have killed her and put her body in the boot of their car. They played Simpsons Monopoly and had a pizza. And this is where the jury went into the back garden of Becky's home, where she lived with her father and stepmother, from where they could see her bedroom window. Becky's body was taken to her stepbrother's home, which was full of rubbish. And this is where he collected a lot of stuff, and this is part of his home. I'm just going to run through some of this so you can get an idea. You can see here, police postponed initial plans to search Matthews' home because there was so much clutter inside. And a detective told the court yesterday, not yesterday, but back then, that one of his officers expressed disgust at the state of the house. And the home of Nathan Matthews and his girlfriend, where they allegedly took her body. And here's the bathroom at Nathan Matthews' home. Look, I mean, how the heck did you even use that? The hallway entrance to his home, cluttered with empty boxes, plastic bags, and cat boxes. You can see a cat up there. And these are pictures that the jury would see. And they would actually even go here. And because of the way that the house was, the jury were split into 4 groups of 3. You can even see the dishes there. A view of the stairs home, looking up at the staircase. Interesting, the cat must have still been living there while they did that. That's kind of weird. And look at that, a mattress rests by the door. You can see a ladder lies out leading to the attic. Look at they had everything. Well, that's about it. I'm not going to keep showing it, but you get the idea. You get the idea of that. My friends, thank you for joining me today on Deep True Crime, where we like to dive deep and explore past cases and current cases. Please give it a subscribe if that sounds like the type of stuff you like to follow. Give the video a thumbs up if you did get some value from this. Now you know a lot more of the Becky Watts case, a heinous crime by her stepbrother. I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you so much for joining me today on Deep True Crime, where we explore those cases. If you have any requests on a case you would like me to dig deep into, drop a comment below. Let me know what case that is, and I will do my best to cover that. I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you so much for joining me today. Peace.